All right, they are finally in, the Nike Metcon 10s. So this is the OG colorway, so basically the colorway that's a nod to the original Metcon model that came out well over 10 years ago now. But today's gonna be a good workout. So I've actually already trained in these shoes, so I already have some thoughts on them, but I'll bring you guys through my workout today. It's gonna be a lower strength and hypertrophy focused day, and then we're finishing off with some conditioning work. So a perfect day to really break these in and kind of give you guys the full scope of what to expect with this shoe. I have some thoughts, not all of them are positive. Definitely more positive than what the Metcon 9 brought to the table, but still have my qualms with this shoe. But let's get to the workout. I'll talk through the sizing, fit, and just the overall feel for different workout contexts, some strength stuff, some running today, and then also some sled work and whatnot. But let's get to it. All right, so some notable changes about the Nike Metcon 10's fit that I noted right away is that it does feel a lot more similar to the older Metcons in the sense that they have this lower profile upper up here, slightly snugger toe box to be honest, and there's a lot more arch in this shoe, which to be quite honest with y'all, I don't necessarily love. I don't love the fit of this model in the sense of, I think being a good shoe for a lot of different foot anatomies, I think it's gonna be a little bit more polarizing with its fit and feel. And if you don't like any form of aggressive medial arch in your shoes, then I think you're gonna struggle with this shoe. I also think that if you found the Nike Metcon 9's toe box to be just big enough for you, then this model, tread lightly with. And if you do get them, definitely keep them fresh so you can return them because toe box is definitely a bit snugger in the shoe. And the lower volume upper, while giving them more of that athletic feel, definitely snugger shoe overall, especially through the midfoot and transition into the forefoot and toe box up here. Sizing and fit thoughts. So I traditionally wear a 10 US shoe, and all the shoes I review, 10 US and all Nike shoes. I went with a 10 in these, and they do fit true to size. I have about half of a thumb's width, if not close to a full thumb's width up here at the end of my toe box, so perfect lengthwise. So go with your normal Nike size or whatever size you traditionally wear in Reebok, Puma, New Balance, etc. This should work. Now some notes about this shoe's fit compared to the Nike Metcon 9, if you've worn that model, is the toe box in this shoe does run a little bit more narrow. There is a bit more of a taper through the toe box in this shoe, and the upper is a little bit more layered in the shoe, so the volume is a little bit lower in the forefoot too. So the toe box definitely feels snugger in the shoe. And then also something I'm picking up on is the arch in this model is a lot more aggressive. So if you don't love any form of arch in your training shoes, that would definitely be something to consider with this model because this is pressing pretty considerably into my midfoot. So if you like some arch support, you're gonna enjoy that. But for my folks out there who don't love having any form of material pressing their medial midfoot, you'll want to consider that. But overall, true to size should be the move. I have a normal arch, normal instep, and an E to double E with foot. And I find this shoe to be a little bit snug in the forefoot, but from a sizing perspective, the length is true, and I wouldn't want to go up a half size to accommodate for my foot width. As a for our movement prep today, we have isos on leg extension and lying hamstring curl. So hold right at about like a 7 out of 10 intensity here. First, that's always a little bit lighter here just to warm up these old knees. But holding this for 30 seconds, switching to the other leg, and then we'll do the same on the lying hamstring curl. Coming off of some tender knees from the last few months of training and just getting over some tendonitis injuries. These feel freaking awesome. Highly recommend if you're getting over some knee stuff to add some isos in before your next lower body day. Game changer, especially the hamstring work. Also, I'll add in some adductors here and there, whether it's a Copenhagen or like a Copenhagen high top, and that's been phenomenal as well for just getting honestly everything feeling a little bit more buttery and smooth for squat mechanics and getting into deep knee flexion without pain. All right, so with the lying hamstring curls here, we're gonna go single leg, basically curl up right to where that nice belly of the muscle is at a full flex position, and just hold here for 60 seconds, and just hold here for 30 seconds. Big thing here, keep this hip pressed in. If it helps, cue your hips to kind of extend through this pad. If you have to kind of let it go, that's fine. Bring it back up with both legs, because as you can see, it is hard for me to hold for 30 seconds right there in that position, just because we're at a mechanical disadvantage here technically from an ISO standpoint. Oh man, God, feels so good though. Bring that back up, 5 more seconds. Whew, switch sides. Oh, sweet, sweet relief. Feels good for what it's worth. All right, so first movement of the day. 3x7 at 7 RPE on the swinging single leg press here. 2 seconds down, 2 seconds up. Grip of the Metcons, feel good. No slide issues, obviously. Got that sticky rubber outsole on these, so don't anticipate any form of machine work being a problem with these whatsoever. I'll show you guys the outsole and the design too in the post-workout breakdown and share some thoughts on it. Because I do have a few things I like with it, but then also a few things that I'm just kind of like, oh, I don't know if that's gonna be a hit for everybody. All right, so fun fact, Brendan here, one of our gym members, is actually wearing the third prototype for the TF2 Catalyst shoe. I'm not going to show the shoe in this video, but I am curious about his thoughts. Doing as much R&D as we can with the gym members here, just so it's not my obvious biased opinion for the shoe itself. I want as many lifters and athletes wearing them as I can. Nice, dude.
Overall thoughts, so for me, I usually lift in Nikes, but they're usually pretty small because I got some wide feet at the end. So I usually like my pinky toes kind of curled up. These are a lot flatter, so I can kind of like spread my toes in them.
How did it feel for this?
A lot better than that. And it's nice because those have like probably like an inch of extra height on them. So this one I kind of felt like more ankle stability with like not having to like lean forward for the bar.
And we're about 75% there. So like the upper will have a bit more structure too to really lock you down in the final.
Thank you for letting me try them.
So getting into our next accessories here, we have Copenhagen plank. If you program these for yourself, ease in, because I'm telling you, your obliques and adductors are gonna be sore AF for a few days. So we have this paired, 20 seconds on each side for reps, paired with the seated hamstring curl with a 4-second eccentric bias, single leg. So goal is to concentric both legs and then do a 4-second eccentric. And then I'm also doing a few deadlifts just to get a feel for the stack height and stability of the React Foam midsole. A few tugs at 170 keys. I'm probably gonna do 2 reps here just to get a feel for the stack height and stability of the React Foam. Like I just mentioned, these are not programmed. Not bad, easy work. Seated calf raises at a higher volume, so we got 20s on these. These are gonna be brutal before running and doing sled, my God. Overall, shoe feels fine. I mean, there's not as much flex in the forefoot, so for my calves, for my calf training friends out there, expect this to be a little stiffer like the other Nike models in the last few years. All right, so conditioning part of the workout. We have 4 800s here, 800 meters at a slightly faster pace than what we did at our 1K pace the other week. So this week will be probably around like 13 to 14 kilometers an hour. But goddamn, I do not love running in these Metcons. This is actually my 3rd workout of running in these. I was hoping maybe once they broke in, they'd feel better, but this is not the case. Still feel like cinder blocks. Better than the 9s, and I would say the 7 and 8s, but still pretty freaking rough. You're not a 4-foot striker or an assault runner. God bless you, because I think the hyperlift heel is still gonna beat you up. So my pace for these 800s is sitting right around like 7.5, 8-minute miles. It's pretty good for a moderate pace for a conditioning part of a workout. All right, so we got a 15-minute EMOM, 45-second sled push paired with 90 seconds of work. So we're gonna do 45 seconds kettlebell swings paired with 45 seconds of dumbbell snatches. I'll likely do right first, left, and then potentially switch if I don't get through 4 rounds. And then a 90-second ski erg. So it's technically an EMOM, but what we're gonna do is on the 90-second bouts, just use that extra 30 seconds as a rest, and then just pick it up from there. So it's technically like a every 90 EMOM for half or 2/3 of the workout for that matter, but that's gonna be the flow. Let's get to it. Let's test the Metcon 10's grip on sled. 3 plates, not trying to go crazy heavy. Goal is accumulation, not crazy effort. Let's rip. Grip solid. Not surprised with the sticky rubber in the lugs. So my buddy here just tried on the shoe. One of the first ones seeing it. He actually tried it on. He's an 11. Shoe size is a 10. What are your thoughts on it?
I mean, all around, it was pretty phenomenal. Like training wise, I guess it'd be more like hybrid. Feels comfortable on the foot, but like, you know, I can still do my cleans, I can still do all my athletic work, but I can also wear it outside of the gym. That was my biggest issue with most of the barefoot stuff, was like I can't wear it outside of the gym because it hurt my feet, but it was solid. It felt great. Yes, sir.
45 seconds kettlebell swings, 45-second dumbbell snatch. A 90-second ski erg. This is my favorite modality when it comes to the actual cardio elements of high rocks. 90 seconds of work, let's go. For what it's worth, the 4-foot in this 10 is a little bit more playful than the 9, which is a good thing, but again, narrow toe box here, so you could probably see it here. Like there's just not enough room up there in the toe box to really splay those toes. I think if you have a 2E plus foot width, so might be a miss for that foot anatomy. Just gonna switch the left arm this time for the snatches. All right, if I look sweaty and exhausted, it's because I am. I am giving you my real-time thoughts here and feedback on the Nike Metcon 10. This is no media company, just giving you an overview of brand new shoes that they haven't actually trained in. So the Metcon 10, let me answer, I think, the initial question that most folks are probably having with the shoe, which is is it better than the Nike Metcon 9? Objectively speaking, yes. I think it is better than the Metcon 9 in many ways. So first off, this shoe has a bit more versatility. The forefoot doesn't feel as clunky and dense. Also, the heel, it's just way better. Now we still have the Hyperlift plate in there. I personally don't love that. I'll talk about that in a second. But comparing the Metcon 9 to the 10, relatively speaking, the heel does feel better in the 10. And now that said, I will have a full video coming out very soon comparing the Nike Metcon 9 to the 10 to give you a better idea of the construction differences and how they perform. That way, if you want to save and pick up an older model or go with a newer, hopefully that video can help give you some direction in your buying decision. Now, that said, Nike Metcon 10, 5 first impressions with this shoe. Now do note I have done a few sessions in this model. I have run in them now 3 times. I've trained in them when it comes to deadlifts, some power focused exercises. So I've done a little bit of everything in this model so far. And my first impression is the fit feels similar to the older Metcons, but I don't necessarily know if that's gonna outright be a good thing for everybody. Now, what I mean by the fit is similar is we have that more sporty, I would say Nike feel to this shoe compared to the Metcon 9. The Metcon 9's toe box is a little bit wider, and you could see that through the taper in the Metcon 10 here. We do have a slightly more tapered toe box. So as you can see, there's a little bit more of an aggressive lateral taper here on this shoe. Now that said, I have an E to double E with foot. And my first impression of this shoe is that I like the older nostalgia feeling of that low profile upper, but I just feel like it might be too snug for most foot anatomies that have a 2E plus foot width. This shoe I think is gonna feel noticeably snugger than the Nike Metcon 9, and while that sportier feel may be a hit for some, I think it's gonna be a total miss for others. So tread lightly with the sizing and fit of this shoe. I'm not sold that it was a positive move to make that overall change with the last construction, the upper in the shoe, but TBD, we need more folks to have these on their feet until we know, I would say, a grander sense of data for their fit and feel. The second first impression that I have with this shoe is I do like the React foam use in this model. So what I will say is that if you're looking for a super flexible shoe, the Metcon 10, similar to the 9, it just ain't gonna be it. It still feels very stiff. Back here in the heel, it is pretty clunky with this TPU plate. And then through the midfoot here, it does flex a little bit once it's broken in, but because we have such thick rubber running throughout the medial and lateral side of the shoe, it doesn't have a ton of flex. So it's not as flexible as models like the Haze Trainer or the F-Lite, for example. So what you will get is a more flexible forefoot, which I do like. I do think the forefoot in this shoe is a lot more playful. It's a little bit more mobile and flexible, which I mentioned in my workout. But if you're looking for an overly flexible shoe, it's just not gonna be it. Like you can see here with the toe break, we don't have a ton of play there. So you can see it's pretty aggressive here unless I really force that midfoot to bend. The natural toe break is just a little bit clunky in this shoe. Granted, it is a lot better than that stiff Nike Metcon 9. So overall, forefoot React foam midsole, much better in the 10, especially when it comes to just pliability and playfulness. My third first impression with this shoe is the midfoot is interesting. Now, more specifically, the lacing system. I get what I think they're trying to do with this more aggressive midfoot loop here to give you lockdown and whatnot, but I'm really curious to see how this is gonna feel for both low and high insteps, because what this ends up doing is I was noticing when I was tying the shoe a little bit tighter, it's interesting because there's like not a lot of pressure here through the midfoot, but down here and then up here on the top of the midfoot, so right on that top of the arch, you get a little bit more pressure. Now, not necessarily a bad thing, but definitely an interesting feel. It just didn't feel as cohesive because we have this gap here. We also now have this lace pocket here at the top of the tongue, so there's a little lace tuck feature. And if we're looking at similar shoes that have already done this, like the Strike Movement Haze Trainer has done this forever, but you can now tuck your laces if you really want. I've just never really tucked my laces on any of the shoes, so I don't know if that's gonna be a worthwhile feature, but all that to say, the midfoot security in this shoe is interesting. Didn't really notice a lack of security, but it definitely has a different feel with this gap here. And I'm not necessarily concerned at all with the lateral security because it is pretty good in this shoe with this more aggressive haptic overlay upper and the more aggressive midfoot loop here. But when it just comes to feeling of cohesiveness on the foot when it comes to security standpoint, I'm curious if other folks are gonna like it or notice it or just not even mind it, because that might be a feature that I might be hypersensitive to because I obviously review shoes, so going through so many different fits and feels, you just notice little things like that more. My fourth first impression with this shoe is it's still not gonna, in my opinion, be a great training shoe for doing literally everything. So the heel is still a little clunky in this shoe. So We have that TPU still in this model. You can see it back here, it kind of juts out. I don't honestly love the aesthetic of this. It kind of looks like a horse hoof. Also, we do have that plate going up here. Now you better believe once I actually build my review, I will be cutting these in half to see what that plate looks like internally. But that said, this is not gonna be a good shoe, I think, for workouts where you're doing a lot of HIIT and a lot of running. Can it work for some? Yes, especially if you're primarily on the forefoot. So for example, in all of my running workouts so far, I have had 400, 800, and 1,000 meters programmed, and it was okay for that distance. I'm usually running at a slightly faster pace, and I'm a little bit more forefoot heavy, so I don't have as much issue when it comes to impact. But would I use this shoe for outdoor running? Would I use this shoe for necessarily longer runs on a treadmill? Heck no. You will likely want to once again limit your runs in this shoe to 800 meters, 1,000 meters and down if you can. And again, my heel strikers out there, expect a bumpy ride because these guys are going to feel pretty dense just like the Metcon 9. But I will say again, relatively speaking, it is a better shoe compared to the Metcon 9 regarding its versatility. So the Metcon 10, think about it this way. In the sense of stability and versatility, the Metcon 9 was way over here for stability. Now, if we had a middle ground between versatility and stability, the Metcon 10 isn't, I don't think, there, but it is closer to it. So it is a little bit off of that stability side of the spectrum and starting to trend towards that versatile side. But it's not necessarily going to be that shoe that I think every athlete can use for everything and not necessarily feel kind of beat up or just not love the heel when it comes to impact on the ground. Now, my fifth first impression with this shoe is the midfoot here. Now, what I noticed with this shoe is the arch is a lot more aggressive in this model. It's almost like they swung the pendulum in the complete opposite direction of the 9. So for example, in the 9 here, we didn't really have a lot, and I think that it was a little bit too little for what it was trying to do. Like it kind of had this like faux arch, but then not enough support almost, or like it was like a weird kind of like taper, but it kind of spilled over this medial midfoot at times. In the Metcon 10, it's almost like the complete opposite. We have a very much more rigid sidewall here through the medial midfoot, and you will feel that. So for my folks out there who don't like any arch in their training shoe or anything to press into that medial midfoot, you will definitely want to consider that with this shoe. If you invest in a pair, definitely try to keep them fresh when you try them on and see if you like the fit, so you can return them if they don't work, because this midfoot is a lot more aggressive. I do like the overall midfoot construction and how they tone down the rope guard. Thank God they finally listened to everybody. We do have a little bit of a medial and lateral wrap here, but my gosh, we do not need this much of a rubber rope guard for rope climbs. Nobody is rope climbing that much. Even if you're rope climbing twice a month and it's programmed twice a month, 3 times a month, you don't really need that much. It's crazy. So it is nice seeing that in the Metcon 10. They toned that down, gives it a much more sleeker look. And then just looking at the outsole really fast right here before I wrap this video up, we do have this triangular lug patterning. It kind of reminds me of the MC Trainer 3's outsole tread. We have some breaks up here in the forefoot, and then we also have that exposed TPU plate back here, similar to the Metcon 7 and 8, but you can see that this shoe has a lot more of a taper compared to the Metcon 9. Like you can see there's a lot more of a medial break here in this shoe, especially regarding the arch and just how it's gonna feel. So you will definitely wanna consider that. But overall, Metcon 10, step in a good direction, but I need more sessions in this shoe before I really draw conclusions. Some of the fit aspects I don't necessarily love, and I still don't think this is gonna be the answer for everybody who wants a shoe for doing everything in the gym. I don't think it's as strong as the older Metcon models, but it's definitely better than the 7, 8, and 9. And then again, when it comes to sizing and fit, true to size should be the call for most individuals. Remember, the shoe is gonna have some arch support. And also, I would say if you have a 2E plus foot width, tread lightly in the shoe. You may wanna size up a half size. I have an E to double E width foot, and I find the shoe to be a little bit snug. So take that with a grain of salt. Size this how you would your normal Nikes, but keep in mind that if you have a wide foot, you may want to go up a half size. And then also flat feet, again, that arch could be a little bit off-putting for you. All that said, if you have additional questions on the Metcon 10, drop a comment down below. I will be having a comparison of the Metcon 9 and 10 coming soon, a full Metcon 10 review, and you better believe I'll be comparing these to a lot of different shoes and cutting them in half. But until next time, I will see you guys later. Appreciate you being here. Peace.